Mark 10:46 to 52, page number 1 to 10 in your Bible. Jesus healed blind Bartimaeus. Jesus and his disciples went to Jericho, and as they were leaving, they were followed by a large crowd. A blind beggar by the name of Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. When he heard that it was Jesus from Nazareth, he shouted, "Jesus, son of David, have pity on me." Many people told the man to stop, but he shouted even louder, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him over." They called out to the blind man and said, "Don't be afraid. Come on. He is calling for you." The man threw off his coat as he jumped up and ran to Jesus. Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man answered, "Master, I want to see." Jesus told him, "You may go. Your eyes are healed because of your faith." Right away, the man could see. He went down the road with Jesus.
The story that we were just hearing is about Jesus being in a place called Jericho. It was the second largest city in what was then known as Palestine. How many of you know that in the first century what we call Israel now was the whole place was Palestine? Those of you going to Bible study probably know that, right? A lot of folks forget that. But most of Jesus' ministry were in small towns up around Lake Galilee. Now these are really tiny towns, most of them with less than 1,000 people. And so when he came into town and spoke with people and healed people, it was a small group. It was sort of like one person at a time. And what I really find unfortunate now today is a lot of folks think that, oh, we're going to bring them all in, or we're going to have a big crusade. And you know how sometimes they have these huge amphitheaters, or even like a Dodger Stadium, and they have a big crusade? And especially for the people that haven't been part of a church community, how deep do you think their faith can get from one of these crusades? You ever thought about it? It takes time, doesn't it, to really get the message. Jesus' message was radical. Very radical for his time. And to be able to just take it all in, it's sort of like a plant that needs to root, that needs time, it needs sunshine, it needs watering, and it needs to have the roots grow deep so that we can truly say that we're following him. I have shared with you before my conversion experience, and that was a letter that was written by Leo Tolstoy, the author of War and Peace. Any of you had to read it in school? It's about this thick. War and Peace, you know what I'm talking about? Very thick book. And Tolstoy did not call himself a Christian. He called himself a follower of Jesus. And what had happened, he was from Russia, and so there was only one church in Russia at that time, and that was the Russian Orthodox Church. And he had spoken quite openly about what he felt some of their practices really weren't following Jesus. And so what they did is they excommunicated him. But rather than just sitting back and saying, well, now I'm excommunicated, I don't have any faith community to go to, he wrote a letter that was one of the most powerful things I'd ever read. And when he said back to them, he said, you know what? I wouldn't come back to your church even if you put me back in good standing. He said, all you are concerned about is outward piety. You worry about bowing and standing and sitting and kneeling and incense and icons to look at, but where is the gospel message in this church? Where is Jesus in this church? It's all about doing certain kinds of outward acts, but where's the depth? Where do you really feel the presence of Christ in what you do? And so he quoted from the Gospel of Matthew. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. And when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. And when I was sick, you took care of me. And when I was in prison, you came and visited me. To him, this was the essence of the gospel of Jesus. Caring for everybody around us. Knowing that everybody has needs, including ourselves. And that in order to be truly a follower of Christ, we have to really be in right relationship with each other. Because this earth is kind of like a practice field. If you picture us, we're kind of in practice. And if you want to love God, you have to love your neighbor first, don't you? How can you hate your neighbor and say, oh, love God, but oh, that woman next door to me, terrible. You can't do that. You really can't. And you know, there are a lot of other people that have had the same experience. They've gone to church, they've gone to Sunday school, and they kind of fade away because they really didn't feel that there was any depth. When you want to be a disciple, it takes time. It's not an overnight venture. One of my favorite authors who just died last year was a fellow by the name of Marcus Borg. He was the one that wrote a book called Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time. Now, I think he was from the state of Iowa. Good little Iowa boy. His family were churchgoers. He went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, was confirmed when he was 13 years old, went through all the motions, and never really felt anything. Because his faith that was taught to him was more about, you have to believe this, you have to believe that, you have to do this, you have to do that. But again, it wasn't an inner kind of a thing. It wasn't something that he could really live by. And so what happened is that many years went by, he kind of fell out of the way, didn't go to church anymore, wasn't in communion with the folks that he had grown up with. And he had gone to college, and he had some extra units. You know how we have those extra units? And you think, maybe I'll take a course in religious studies, just, something to do, and I could get my 3 units. So he took a course in early Christianity. I thought, well, this will be interesting. Maybe I'll learn something I didn't learn when I was a kid. And he had to read the Gospels. And so this was like reading it for the first time in his life. And he read all the things that Jesus said and did. All the challenges that he made to his followers. That you don't just kick back and say, oh, well, God loved me and do all this good stuff for you. You have to get up and you have to also serve others. It's not a selfish kind of a thing. It's sort of a selfless kind of a life. You have to be a servant to each other. And he read this and he thought, wow, this is what I believe. Why did I meet this guy before? I was 5 years old. I was in Sunday school. And I don't remember this guy. No one ever really told me about him. This is sometimes hard stuff. Sometimes people can be really obnoxious, right? And I think you know who I'm talking about. I mean, not anybody in particular, but people in your life can be really hard to get along with. And to try to love them and forgive them and just kind of let them be responsible for their behavior and just let it slide off is not an easy task, is it? Not easy at all. Particularly when they say ugly things about you. In some cases, people have lost their jobs because of gossip, of what people have said. So I have to be able to forgive these kind of folks. This is what Jesus says we have to do. Because you have to learn how to love each other before you can say you love God. So we don't have any big rallies here, except for Rally Day, right? It's just more like a big party. We're not going to have a bunch of folks filling the pews and we're going to jump up and down and sing wild songs and hope that you go home and you're just going to be full of Jesus. Because it isn't that easy to really live a Christ-like life. It takes work. It takes rooting. It takes determination. But there is value in being able to love unconditionally, to accept each other unconditionally, to really know what it's like for God to love us. We have to first practice loving each other. Amen.